Thank you so much. Yeah, catch me if you can. Now you caught me in Berlin. It's great. Hello, everybody. Thank you so much for finding the way from the main area where all the magic happens now to where our magic happens and to this stage. So it's great to see you. We are talking in English and a bit in German, but the main language will be now in English. So as you know, the main theme is who cares, right? And this is also the topic and the question now. Who cares? That question strikes the core of the matter now of the next hour, because who cares about the topic of menstruation, of having a cycle? So it is such a natural part of life, of many people, but it is, of course, a topic that is highly stigmatized, right? It is covered with a big taboo, and all over the world, women are suffering among and under this taboo. But now we are trying to tackle this taboo and finding ways and solutions how to break the silence and how to kick the stigma. That is also a motto. All over the world, women and girls, they are marginalized because of their periods. They are belittled and prevented from reaching really the full potential. And that doesn't mean they just can't go to school. It also means that they suffer from economic benefits, right? They can't go to school, they can't go maybe to work. And just to give you some facts, over 600 million menstruating persons lack the access to information, facilities, and products. And it's not just something that isolates, it's also something that is a systemic problem. So it needs also systemic solutions. And what that all means, to really knuckle it down, that's what we're gonna debate in the next hour. And of course, today is what day? The 28th of May. What does that mean? 28.05. This day is the MHD Day, and why and what it means, Menstrual Hygiene Day 2024, and its 10th anniversary, that's also something that we'd like to hear more about. And of course, because I always ask myself, what can we all do to bring more attention to this topic that is so covered with stigma and taboo? And do you see my bracelet here? Oh, unfortunately, I'm lacking one hand, but Ina is also wearing a bracelet. You see my bracelet here with the red pearls. And I'd like to invite you to stay with us until the end, because we will hear more about it, because this is something very small, but we can also show our engagement and our motivation to kick the stigma and to break the taboo with such a little thing like a bracelet. And what it all has to do with it, we're going to talk about it in a second. As Fabian mentioned, I'm Katie. Lovely to have you. I'm a journalist and moderator, and as I said, I'm very much into the topic because it all belongs to our society, that we all be engaged and that we are open to kick the stigma and that we ask the bold questions that are so often hidden behind the taboo. And with that, I welcome you all. And with that, of course, I also start into our program with the official opening remarks by the Parliamentary State Secretary of the Federal Ministry for Economic Cooperation and Development from Germany, Dr. Bärbel Kofler. And she has sent us a video statement.
Ladies and gentlemen, millions of girls around the world miss class or even drop out of school. Women sometimes cannot go to work and are then not paid. Or they are excluded from social events like visiting a temple because they are considered impure. Why? Because they have their period. Yet menstruation is the most natural thing in the world. Who cares? Is the question that this year Republika asks on the 10th anniversary of Menstrual Hygiene Day. My answer is this: we should all care, because menstruation doesn't just affect women. When women and girls are stigmatized and excluded, it affects entire families, companies, and societies. And that's exactly what Menstrual Hygiene Day and the campaign like Let's Talk Period are all about. They are about raising awareness of this natural process and calling for safe access to toilets and hygiene products worldwide. They are also about including boys and men and showing them how to support their mothers, sisters, and daughters. That is why our feminist development policy is supporting projects in Nepal, Albania, the Philippines, Zambia, and South Africa. We work with local influencers and celebrities to address and dispel prejudice around menstruation. By sharing experiences and information on digital platforms, we can change social norms and help people worldwide understand that menstruation is a natural part of life. No one has to be ashamed of menstruation. We can all make a statement by wearing the menstruation's bracelet.
If you want to hear more about the facts and figures, also, of course, be invited to scan the QR code with more studies and reports, so we can actually underlay the debate, of course, with facts and figures. Now, I'd like to come in what I've just mentioned, the anniversary day today, the 10 years of the Menstrual Hygiene Day. And, you know, it always needs a lot of people to bring good ideas into life. And WASH United brought the idea of the MHD Day to life 10 years ago. And I'm so privileged to now welcome here on stage Ina Jurga, who has been at the forefront of the campaign.
Thank you, Kati. Hi, everyone. Yes, it's really a privilege and really great to be here on Menstrual Hygiene Day that we from WASH United initiated 10 years ago here in Kreuzberg as a small NGO. And now it's the biggest global campaign on menstruation. I just have to correct Kati, it's 500 million women and girls for whom menstruation is a monthly struggle. They don't have toilets, water, soap. Menstrual products are unaffordable or not accessible. Education around menstruation is absolutely inadequate. And above all, there's stigma and taboos. To change that, we initiated Menstrual Hygiene Day, which is now supported by over 1,100 partners, including UNICEF, GIZ, but many, many small partners who go online, who go create events to push back the stigma and create awareness on the issue. And it's happening today, really from Pakistan to Papua New Guinea, from Sweden to Chile. It's amazing to see what's happening today. And menstruation, as you might have seen over the last 10 years, has really moved into the center of society. There's more conversation happening, not only on MH Day. But I brought you free impact data, so because we're on a digital conference, we like numbers. So 2014, we started with 89 media articles worldwide, 89. Last year, we had 18,000. The second one is that last year there were 222 social media posts alone, and 50% came from sub-Saharan Africa. And this is really amazing because it shows that where the people where the challenges are really the biggest are demanding the change. And the last one is the overall impact data. So it was 705 million people were reached, and it's a brutto number. And we calculated almost 9% of the world population who was reached last year on MH Day. And I hope we reach equally or even more this year. So Menstrual Hygiene Day is also the thanks. And it's all together. Menstrual Hygiene Day is also there to show solutions and demand policy change. So political will, commitment, and especially financing for menstrual health and hygiene is lacking, and it's catastrophically underfunding. It's great to see the ministry speaking here and showing how important the issue is for them today. And they included it into their strategies, which is really great. But what is missing, and that's the crux, is that they don't define targets and put in dedicated budgets behind. So when, for example, now there's a financial crisis, it's really easy to take I switch to German, Rotstift, because I love this pun, the Rotstift, to cut, especially in projects on menstrual health and hygiene, because they can. And that, I think, is unacceptable. But there are solutions, and we're going to hear from some of them today. And it's not rocket science. We know how it works. It's not like climate change or something else. It is possible, and I believe we can make good menstrual hygiene possible within our generation. We just have to come together and want it enough. So, as with the theme of this year, let's call together for a period-friendly world. Thank you. And if you want to participate, just use the hashtag period-friendly-world to tweet from here, which would be great.
Thank you, Ina. Thank you. Well, now we are switching to German. Ladies and Gentlemen, ihr kennt sie alle und ich freue mich jetzt sehr, dass wir kurz auf Deutsch sprechen, bevor wir dann die Runde natürlich wieder öffnen, weil wir ganz unterschiedliche Perspektiven auf Frauengesundheit und Periodenhygiene setzen wollen und das Ganze natürlich auch mit dem Empowerment of Women, mit der Frauen-Empowerment, mit der Förderung von Frauen im wirtschaftlichen Sinne und sie ist dafür eine Vorreiterin, sie ist Model, sie ist aber vor allem Unternehmerin. Sie hat Nuru Coffee gegründet und Nuru Woman und unterstützt in Äthiopien mit Kaffeeverkauf diese wirtschaftliche Stärkung von Frauengruppen vor Ort. Ihr kennt sie alle, bitte mit einem riesenden, großen, tosenden Applaus. Sarah Nuru! Setz dich gerne. Jetzt haben wir, glaube ich, ein Mikro mehr, als ich gedacht habe, aber lieber ein Mikro zu viel als ein Mikro zu wenig. Good to have you. Schön, dich zu sehen, Sarah.
Ja, ebenso, vielen Dank. Ich freue mich sehr, hier zu sein, vor allem am 28.05. Passt sehr gut zusammen, eben die Messe, der Tag.
Ja, und natürlich zu dem Thema.
Absolut.
Und wenn man dir folgt auf Social Media, erstmal herzlichen Glückwunsch. Du wirst Mama, du hast es am Sonntag öffentlich gemacht in deinen Stories, zumindest.
Ich konnte es nicht mehr verstecken, ich dachte, vielleicht muss es raus.
Herzlichen Glückwunsch.
Ja, danke schön.
Wie geht's dir?
Gut, also ich freue mich sehr, dass wir heute über das Thema sprechen, das mir auch meiner Schwester mit unserem Verein Nuru Woman sehr am Herzen liegt, das Thema Gesundheit von Frauen und wir setzen uns da gerade in dem Bereich, seit wir selber Mütter geworden sind, extrem ein im Mutter-Kind-Gesundheit, vor allem auch für also auch neugeborene Kinder. Und ja, und das Thema jetzt menstruale Gesundheit und Hygiene ist der Beginn. Ja. Genau in diese Richtung.
Von Leben auch, von allem, ja. Nimm uns noch mal einen Schritt zurück, weil viele, die deine Reise vielleicht nicht so intensiv verfolgt haben, wir sehen im Hintergrund aber natürlich auch die Frauen, die ihr bei Nuru Woman unterstützt. Wie kam das für dich, dass du gesagt hast, ja, das Modelleben ist schön, du wirst Unternehmerin, das ist ein Schritt, den du ja oft auch erzählt hast, aber der Schritt von wir unterstützen mit Kaffee hin zu wir unterstützen Frauen in der Frauengesundheit, das ist ja ein neuer Schritt, also von Nuru Coffee zu Nuru Woman, beziehungsweise beides auch zu leben. Wie kam dieser Schritt?
Also angefangen war es ja so, dass wir nicht einfach nur Lust hatten, Unternehmerin zu sein, weil das jetzt on vogue war, sondern tatsächlich wir eine Alternative zum herkömmlichen Spendenmodell schaffen wollten, wie wir anstelle von klassischen Spenden hin zu durch wirtschaftliches Handeln Gutes tun. Und da war unser Fokus gerade den Zugang zu Frauen, die keinen Zugang zum Kaffeehandel haben, durch Mikrokredite zu unterstützen, sich ein eigenes Business aufzubauen, weil meine Schwester und ich unseren Traum verwirklicht haben, mit Nuru Coffee etwas aufzubauen. Gleichzeitig, als wir Mütter geworden sind, haben wir uns und auch Beschwerden hatten und nicht alles rund lief, haben wir dann uns gefragt, wie sieht das eigentlich in Äthiopien aus? Also sowohl bei dem Thema der Mikrokredite war das aus einem persönlichen Bezug heraus, wie jetzt auch. Ich habe mich vorher nie Gedanken gemacht über, wie sieht der Zugang aus zu Gesundheitsvorsorge während der Geburt, nach der Geburt. Genau das Gleiche auch zum Thema, wie gehen junge Frauen mit ihrer Periode um. Das sind alles Dinge, die ich mir erst dann wirklich, oder wir uns Gedanken gemacht haben, haben dann mit Erschrecken festgestellt, dass 401 Frauen unter 100.000 Geburten sterben.
Wegen einer mangelhaften Versorgung?
Wegen einer mangelhaften Versorgung, Komplikationen während der Geburt und wohingegen in Deutschland das umgerechnet auf 100.000 Geburten 7 Frauen sind. Und das sind oftmals Gründe, die vermeidbar wären. Hätten sie Zugang zur medizinischen Versorgung, Aufklärung über Ernährung, über eben frühzeitige Kontrolle und das hat uns dazu bewegt, genau da aktiv zu werden und jetzt mit dem Mutter-Kind-Gesundheitsprojekt auch Dinge umzusetzen.
Okay, lass uns reinzoomen. Wie macht ihr das konkret? Weil das eine ist ja viel auch im entwicklungspolitischen Kontext. Man kann super viel lesen, es gibt tolle Broschüren, tolle Kampagnen. Ihr seid ja mit dem Projekt auch vor Ort. Du reist regelmäßig auch ins Land. Äthiopien ist auch jetzt mit den aktuellen Konflikten in der Region und in dem Land auch nicht ganz einfach. Wie wollt ihr das so gestalten, dass es auch erfolgreich ist? Dass das, was hier schwarz auf weiß dann steht, oder man auch auf den Fotos sieht, dass das auch wirklich dann so leben wird, im wahrsten Sinne des Wortes, weil die Babys dann geboren werden.
Ja, also der erste Schritt, dass wir erstmal in die Region hingehen. Borena, das ist 580 Kilometer nördlich von Addis Abeba entfernt. Und erstmal mit der Bevölkerung, mit dem Dorf auch sprechen. Wie ist die Versorgung aktuell? Wie ist der Stand? Es bringt nichts, einfach hinzugehen mit unserem Konzept und irgendwas überzustülpen, was leider oft mal passiert, sondern dass man wirklich vor Ort ist, mit den Menschen auf Augenhöhe spricht, mit den Frauen, ihnen zuhört, wo denn der Bedarf liegt. Vieles war mir zum Beispiel nicht bewusst, dass der Bedarf an Wartehäuser so wichtig ist. Klar, man denkt sofort an Krankenhäuser, dass die medizinische Versorgung, Mittel, Hygieneartikel, das ist naheliegend und klar. Aber dass zum Beispiel ein Wartehaus ausgebaut werden muss, ausgestattet werden muss mit Betten, dann dachte ich, warum? Weil oftmals die Krankenhäuser so entlegen liegen und die Frauen, sobald die Wehen einläuten, dann teilweise 3 Tage, also wirklich kilometerweite Wege auf sich nehmen müssen, um das zu umgehen und natürlich währenddessen dann viele Komplikationen entstehen. Diese Warteräume dienen, um sie schon 1-2 Wochen vorher schlafen zu lassen, liegen zu lassen, damit sie möglichst nah am Krankenhaus sind. Das sind so eine Sache, die war vorher überhaupt nicht in unserem Bewusstsein, in unserem Konzept. Haben wir gesagt, okay, das machen wir, das werden wir zukünftig unterstützen. Auf der anderen Seite auch natürlich dass die Hebammen, dass wir nicht kommen und sagen, also wir sind ja hier in der westlichen Gesellschaft, finden wir zurück zum Ursprung, finden wir das ja gut, dass wir gerne auch Hausgeburten und all das, und das wollen wir denen ja allen auch gar nicht abstreiten, aber trotzdem auch ihnen sagen, dass sie regelmäßig zur Kontrolle gehen, um zu schauen, dass das Kind auch wirklich nicht in Beckenendlage liegt, dass auch gut versorgt ist, sodass die ohne schlechtem Gewissen dann auch zu Hause gebären können. Und da auch die Aufklärung hingehend mit Hebammen, mit ihnen auch zusammenzuarbeiten, weil oftmals merkt man, dass es Rivalitäten zwischen den Krankenhäusern und also der neuen Tradition und der alten Tradition entsteht. Und dass man auch da sehr viel zwischenmenschliche
Kompetenz auch mitbringen muss,
ja.
Ist das auch so eine Generationssache, wo ihr bei Neuro Women dann auch eine Form der Generation Kommunikation zusammenbringt, gerade weil ihr auch beide Welten verbindet? Nicht nur, dass ihr sozusagen aus dem sogenannten globalen Norden nach Äthiopien globalen Süden geht, miteinander arbeitet, wirklich miteinander arbeitet und nicht übereinander Dinge klärt, dass ihr aber auch Generationen da zusammenbringt bei Neuro Women.
Ja, also das ist sehr wichtig. Also wir hier sind ein sehr junges Team, ein sehr dynamisches Team, aber uns ist auch wichtig, dass wir beidseitig lernen, dass wir nicht nur, dass wir auch gucken, was können wir hier in Deutschland auch von unseren Partnerinnen, von den Frauen, die wir unterstützen dürfen, aber auch von den Hebammen und der Tradition vor Ort lernen. Und das ist extrem bereichernd aber auch, wir sehen am Anfang und haben auch noch viel vor.
Was hat sich denn, seitdem du Mutter geworden bist, da gab es ja Neuro Woman auch schon, aber Neuro Coffee natürlich schon viel länger, hat sich denn die Beziehung zu dem Projekt Neuro Woman nochmal verändert, seitdem du auch selber Mama geworden bist und seitdem Sally, deine Schwester, ja auch Mutter geworden ist? Also ihr seid ja jetzt mit ganz, ganz viel mehr Kindern unterwegs als noch ganz zu Beginn zum Projektstart. Was verändert sich da auch für dich in dem Sinne, wie du das Projekt oder wie das Programm des Projekts gestaltet werden soll?
Also dadurch, dass wir auch beide Töchter zur Welt gebracht haben, merken wir, also vorher war das ja schon sehr unser Baby, unser Anliegen, aber jetzt merken wir natürlich umso mehr, dass wir das nicht nur für uns machen und für die Menschen in Äthiopien, sondern natürlich auch für die nächste Generation, auch für unsere Töchter und auch sehen, dass wir das Glück hier haben, unsere Kinder gesund auf die Welt zu bringen, mit einer Selbstverständlichkeit, mit Entscheidungen zu treffen, wie wir das machen können. Und das war mir vorher nicht so allgegenwärtig bewusst und ich sehe sehr viele Parallelen natürlich und natürlich auch in all den Müttern, also ja, wir sind ja alle im selben Boot jetzt, ja.
Und kannst du noch mal erklären für all diejenigen, die vielleicht, weil manchmal sind diese Zusammenhänge schwer zu verstehen, weil die Welt so kompliziert geworden ist. Frauengesundheit und wirtschaftliche Entwicklung, letzten Endes Geld, Einkommen, wie hängt das zusammen und welches Stigma hat oder gibt es vor Ort auch in Äthiopien bezüglich Frauengesundheit und respektive der wirtschaftlichen Entwicklung von Frauen, dass sie eigenständig sind, dass sie ein Bankkonto haben, ein eigenes Einkommen generieren, ja, auch independent, selbstständig arbeiten und leben und arbeiten und sein können. Welches Stigma gibt es da vor Ort? Weil manchmal kennt man das nicht, weil es so in der Ferne liegt, obwohl es ja hier in Deutschland eventuell ähnliche Parallelen gibt.
Also die klassischen Stigmas sind natürlich, dass erstmal vieles tabuisiert wird. Also es wird nicht darüber gesprochen, sobald Gewalt erfahren wird zu Hause, die Frauen abhängig sind, weil sie eben kein eigenes Einkommen generieren. Auf der anderen Seite auch, sobald sie in gebärfähigem Alter ist, da nicht weiß, dass, oder oftmals gerade im ländlichen Bereich nicht wissen, dass sie eigentlich verhüten können, dass sie durchaus auch Mitspracherecht haben und Familienplanung ist deshalb auch so wichtig, dass man Aufklärung betreibt und auch Zugang zu Verhütungsmitteln. Es bringt ihnen nichts, wenn sie nur wissen, ja, ich könnte mich schützen, aber dann eben nicht Zugang zu Material, also zum medizinischen Dingen haben, um eben das zu planen, so wie sie das für die Familie wollen. Und wir glauben fest daran, dass man eben sobald man durch wirtschaftliche Unabhängigkeit selbstbestimmt agieren kann. Und das sehen wir an den Frauen, die wir unterstützt haben mit den Mikrokrediten, dass sie sich nichts mehr sagen lassen von ihren Männern. Viele aber auch nicht nur scheiden lassen auf der anderen Seite, aber auch zwischenmenschlich die Beziehung auch wieder aufrecht ist, weil die Last des Mannes nun nicht oder der Familie nicht mehr auf den Schultern des Mannes liegt, sondern aufgeteilt wird. Man begegnet sich plötzlich auf Augenhöhe. Ja.
Sorgt aber auch für Konflikt, oder? Also, aber es klingt nicht einfach. Das hat man ja hier im deutschen Kontext oder im europäischen Kontext auch erlebt, wenn sozusagen Strukturen, soziale Strukturen sich verändern. Wie nimmst du das wahr, wenn du auch vor Ort bist und mit den Frauen, wir sehen es im Hintergrund, diese tollen Bilder von euren Neuro-Women. Hast du da Stimmen gehört, wo es heißt, ja, vielleicht ist es auch gar nicht, es ist wichtig, aber es ist nicht einfach?
Ja, das ist tatsächlich, natürlich sind auch viele Männer nicht begeistert, dass wir zum Beispiel uns fokussiert haben auf nur Frauen und oftmals, wenn wir zusammensitzen, heißt es dann auch, wenn es um Gleichberechtigung geht, warum werden dann nur die Frauen bevorzugt? Und natürlich ist es ein Punkt und ich erinnere mich noch, als wir mal zusammensaßen und dann kam genau diese Frage auf und meine Schwester und ich haben uns angeguckt und dachten, oh je, jetzt geht's los, müssen wir diskutieren, uns rechtfertigen und dann kam ein anderer Mann vorweg und hat uns ist ins Wort gefallen und meinte, naja, weil die Frau eben besser mit dem Geld in der Regel umgeht und besser haushaltet und guckt, dass die Kinder in die Schule gehen können und am Ende des Tages immer noch genug Geld übrig ist, um sich was zu leisten. Und was mir auch auffällt, die Frage kriege ich oft gestellt, wie die Männer auch, wie das zwischenmenschlich eben die Gesellschaft,
in der Partnerschaft, wie das funktioniert.
Ganz oft ist es so, dass wenn man so im Existenzminimum lebt, da ist die Frage, dass wer das Geld bekommt, nicht wichtig, sondern dass überhaupt bei einem oder Zugang zu einer verbesserten Gesundheit, zu finanziellen Unabhängigkeit, das steht über dem individuellen Ego, wer jetzt Mann versus Frau, sondern das dient der ganzen Familie. Und da sind Männer dann oft auch dankbar dafür und fügen sich, denn sie denken sich so lieber die Frau wie niemand in der Familie. Und das kommt ja uns
als Familie zusammen. Genau. Ja. Ist das Ego-Problem dann eher, was wir hier im Norden sozusagen, in Europa auch diskutieren, viel zu viel diskutieren, weil das ein Thema in Äthiopien gar nicht so das Thema ist in der Familie?
Man muss sich das erstmal leisten können, ein Ego zu haben und sich das können die viele in Äthiopien nicht und das ist hier ein natürlich viel größeres Problem.
Thema, ja. Danke dir. Sarah Nuru von Nuru Women und Nuru Coffee. Das war ja nur der erste Streich unserer Diskussionsrunde. Denn wir machen weiter und wir switchen jetzt wieder in die nächste Sprache, wieder ins Englische. Also, we are switching back into English, and I warmly welcome now on stage Inonge and Gerda Binder. Please join us on stage, and I'll introduce you to our audience in a second. Inonge, I have the perfect color for you. Please join us. Yes, Gerda, would you, yeah, or... All good. All right. So we are, of course, an all-female panel. I love that. That is rare to have, nevertheless. Inonge Kalustian is with us, joining us from Zambia. For all of you map lovers, just an orientation. It's based south of the DRC, north of Botswana, Zimbabwe, and Mozambique in this surrounding. And you are a professional football player from Zambia as part of the Zambian women's national team. And you are also the goodwill ambassador for the GIZ's Kick the Stigma campaign. It's lovely to have you. Thank you so much for joining us from Zambia.
Thank you for having me.
And please follow her also on Instagram, because she played soccer yesterday with the Federal Minister Annalena Baerbock. And the day before, I saw her in Bonn. So she is really all over the place for Kick the Stigma. Thank you. Gerda Binder is with us. Yes, another round of applause. It's always welcome to shower our guests with love, because the work that they are doing is not always easy when we fight the stigma. Nevertheless, Gerda Binder is with us. Great to have you. You are UNICEF's Senior Advisor for Gender Equality and Digital Technology from the UNICEF Innovation Hub. You work with girls and partners on, and that's where we come in, on digital solutions when we talk about period and menstrual health for and by women and girls. Experts also call it gender-responsive digital literacy. And that is, of course, a tough topic. And we want to understand what it means in real life, not just in the buzzwords. Gerda, great to have you. Thank you so much. And I already mentioned, so we are starting our conversation, I think, with a look into Zambia's soccer team, because we do have the pleasure and the big honor to have Inonge with us. And it is, of course, a male-dominated sport, as we all know. Nevertheless, the women, they bring in the results, and we want to see how you play. So let's have a look into our first movie, when we kick the stigma with Inonge.
So once tiziva mphamvu timankana zeve kusebenzera pamodzi nakuchita overcome ma challenges as a team, and futhi timankala ukondwera tikaziva tachita overcome ma negatives anomakamba abantu bali bakazi mukuteya bola. Apa manje taziva kuzikambira te once anomakamba ati bakazi sibangateya bola yoyeve taikana.
Just like in sports, life throws challenges at us.
Today, we are here to kick down some barriers on the pitch.
There she is. How easy or how difficult is it to kick the stigma in Zambia?
I think, so for some more context, I actually grew up in the US. So I'm half Zambian, half Armenian, and I grew up in the States. And I moved to Zambia this past year to play in the Premier League. And that was a wonderful experience. And I think I was able to learn more about the stigmas and taboos surrounding menstruation, not only through this campaign, but also, by talking with my teammates, and also we were able to visit a local school. And I think, just hearing the stories from family members and teammates, my mother grew up in Zambia, so hearing her story, I've heard some of the challenges that are associated with being a menstruating person growing up in Zambia. It's very difficult. I think it's something that deeply affects school children specifically.
But why and how?
Well, I mean, it's something that is not really talked about in specific communities. I think, especially in rural areas, so for example, if you're in school and you're menstruating, in some communities you have to actually stay home, and they don't have the proper, or some communities don't have proper resources, so it's even recommended that you literally sit on a sandbag while you're menstruating, and you have to wait until that's over. So obviously this is very disruptive for a child's education, and likewise you also can't really participate in sports. So I think the narrative is changing a bit. I think during this campaign I was able to meet with grade 12 school children, and just to hear their perspective on it and see how receptive they were to the campaign, like that was very refreshing for me.
You've listened to the stories of your mom, and now you're listening to the stories of these young girls, 2023, 2024. What has changed, or is it still the same narrative of stigma and taboo for menstruating people and persons?
I really do think that this next generation has a lot to say, and they aren't being shy about the topic, which was just amazing to see. Like, they were so enthusiastic about the campaign. They were showing us some of the resources that they have kind of created amongst themselves as high schoolers, resources that they are now providing for their schools, ideas that they have, and they're just so incredibly smart, and it's really just a talented group of kids. Yeah.
Wonderful, thank you.
Thank you.
Gerda, we've listened, and I see now already the smartphone with an app, as I presume. Digital solutions, and we all talk about digital solutions and artificial intelligence and everything that will save our problems, from a digital spectrum. How can and how will the digital solution sphere be helpful in fighting the stigma and fighting the taboo? And how do you, how have you found solutions, or how have you created solutions with UNICEF to support young women and girls and in general fighting the stigma, in fact?
Thank you so much. And is that working? Yes. Okay, super. And I completely agree. Girls are a lot more vocal, right? And so the first thing that happened is whenever in any country we speak to adolescent girls, they share with us their number one concern is what's happening to my body. I have no information. I get my first menstruation and I don't know what it is. It scares me. I think I'm sick. I might be dying. I have to run off to the health clinic. So we kind of listened to that and said, okay, we also understand that more and more of you have access to digital. And they told us about what they find when they look for information on health, on menstruation, and it's truly confusing for them. It's either too difficult to understand because it's so medical, or they get different answers. Right? So there's so much misinformation. And so they said to us, you know what? We have some access to digital. Can you work with us? And we tell you exactly what you need to do. So the wonderful thing was that we could go into this without any expectation or any requirements. It was all the girls. They have the answers. They tell exactly, they crafted models, they made drawings, and they exactly said what would work for them or not, right? And when it comes to digital, Katie, it's too many of our solutions and platforms are built for a default user, and that is too often male or an adult. There's barely any platform that was built, for example, as we did with girls in Mongolia or Indonesia. And so we learned a lot. And what we decided was we'll co-create that with girls, and we demonstrate also to the world what does an application. They decided on an app. We were open to any platform. They explained why. It has to work offline completely. No connectivity. They don't have, we just heard it, no money for data packages. Mm-hmm. So it has to work offline. They have really old low-end Android phones. Nobody builds for that, right? But it has to run on like really low operating systems, 5 and up. So they explained to us, and then we don't have storage, so it has to be lightweight, but we want it really great. It needs to be a game. It needs to be our friend. So it has to be colorful, and we want all the information with menstruation as the entry point. But they don't really know the link from menstruation to reproductive health or fertility. So the list was amazing.
And very long, as I assume, right?
Very, very long. We said, okay, this is what we can do. But it was especially the technology requirements they had, and they enlightened us. How do you build? And we couldn't find a comparable solution on the market or by anyone. So we said, okay, we'll build that. We built it open source, so it's a digital public good, and we can actually showcase and raise awareness of how do you reach with girls with digital solutions and content that is relevant to them, that's empowering, positive, and that actually they created, and they're so proud of it. In any country that we localize. I'm speaking too much. You can ask.
No, absolutely. No, it's amazing because it has so much to do with empowerment when it comes from the people for the people, right? But we've heard a lot about the program and the app. Let's have a look into the app, I would say. It's called Oki app, if I'm correct. And I wonder, what would it speak like? Is it an app that speaks to me in a certain way?
Well, maybe we just listen to Oki itself and see what it says.
Let's do it. Let's have a look. Oki, can you hear us?
Hi, welcome to Aki, a period tracker app for girls like you. My name is Ari. Use Aki to get to know you by tracking what's going on with your body and mood every month, and learn about periods in fun ways. Create an account and choose an Aki friend like me to accompany you. We are here for you every step of the way. This is your monthly menstruation cycle. Each shape is a day of the month. And this number is your personal countdown. It shows how many days until your next period, or how many days left of your current period. Track your mood, period flow, body, and activities with emojis on the daily cards. Write in your private diary card. Test your knowledge and take fun quizzes. Check out your calendar and see your whole month at a glance. And check out the Aki menstruation and puberty information to learn new things about your body and health. And don't forget to send me some love. Welcome, friends, to Aki. For girls, by girls, period.
Gerda, that sounds very easy. So we have the app, the taboo is broken. Problem solved. Solution, done, check, next, up to the next one. Is it that easy when we talk about digital solutions for real life problems or real life taboos? It's not a problem, it's a taboo in real life. So, it sounds very easy, but I think maybe your desk looks a little bit more difficult with all the to-dos.
Yeah, thanks for that. No, it doesn't solve it in a blink as we wish for. I think it's a starting point, right? So one thing is the girls themselves have access, and they say that trustworthy information in girl-friendly language in national languages. They trust it, they learn about their body, that's the first win. The second one is they always had said, we don't do this in secret. We want our parents, our friends, community leaders, religious leaders, the teachers to know about that, to know about Oki, and we'll talk about it, right? And this is amazing in how it's now taking traction, because now communities get involved and Oki helps them, like adults, especially men and boys, to have conversations because it delivers you a really girl-friendly language, right? It's not as awkward and it's not so much discomfort anymore. It also busts a lot of myths. I'm sure you have heard, for example, in Nepal, and I think Oki in Nepal, we have, I think, Kiki in the audience, who is a Goodwill ambassador.
Kiki, where are you? Here we go. Kiki is a very famous actress from Nepal, a filmmaker, movie maker, and an actress, and she's also a Goodwill ambassador, for the project.
It's amazing, thank you. So Nepal has like a practice that is harmful to women and girls where you will be locked away in another room or in a shed when you menstruate. While this is already kind of a practice that's abolished, it's still practiced, right? And it needs a lot of support and like Kiki, authorities and celebrities and everyone actually, to really start talking about it and making sure it doesn't happen anymore. So I think what we need is a village, and even more than a village, we need governments. We have Oki always run by a local partner organizations, but governments endorse Oki in the countries, to the point that Philippines, the government issued a memo saying Oki will be used in all the schools during sexuality education sessions. And that really is something where you can see that it will bring social behavior changes, hopefully over time, that not just the next generation is empowered of girls, but all the communities also help to break the taboo.
Thank you, Gerda. Sarah, I'd like to come in here because what Gerda just mentioned, this app was created for girls, of course, by girls. And what you mentioned, New Woman, is also following the approach for the women, but also with the women on site. So how again do you engage the community, the women on the ground in your project, also with Neuro Coffee, but especially with Neuro Women? How do you do it? Do you send out questionnaires, or are you in Buna? Buna is the Ethiopian word for coffee. Buna rounds, how do you do it? How do you engage with the audience? Because of course it takes a lot of time, but the outcome is so valid and important as we've just listened. So how do you do it with Neuro Women?
So especially when we are at new areas where we're not already present, we need to take a lot of effort to invite the people, the women. So we make gatherings together. We invite them to our workshops. It's like 5 days workshop where they can learn about our work, why we're here, what we're doing, what's the goal of our project, and we also pay them to join us, because what we didn't know at the beginning was that a lot of them, they liked the idea, but they couldn't afford to come because it was a lack of daily business when they couldn't, be at the market and sell things. So to understand that it needs, not just the goodwill for in the future of change, but also that at the moment they need, they have to explain it to the men whether they have been and why. And so as soon they're in our workshops and they see other women as well, and they speak to each other and see that there's a safe space where they can actually be open and not be judged, and also learn from each other, then they willing to come again, and this is the starting point.
Inange, you are breaking and kicking the stigma, of course, when you talk with girls and menstruating people about their periods, but you, of course, also kick the stigma in being a very male-dominated sport. So what makes you so motivated to be constantly in your life someone who is not afraid of taboos, who is not afraid of stigmas? What keeps you going, and especially for topics that also brings up your own vulnerability?
Well, I think for me, my educational background is in social epidemiology, researching how social networks affect health status and health literacy. So this campaign was one that was really important to me because, the key goal is to reduce the stigma around menstruation, primarily through the social media campaign. And I've seen firsthand how social media has such an impact on discourse in a lot of Zambian communities, especially the football community. And so that's mainly why I thought it was a perfect match. And, me personally as a public health advocate and someone who wants to better the environment, not only on the pitch, but in the classroom, I thought that this campaign, you really can't go wrong. So that's kind of my motivating factor, just making Zambian communities just a more period positive place for girls and women.
How do you see that change, that it's more period positive in a community, creating that safe space? Where do you see that? In what conversations or in what reactions on social media? You mentioned that, of course, social media is an important platform to talk about this taboo topic, but how do you see the change?
Well, since we've launched the campaign a few days ago, I've seen very positive reactions from people of all genders, all ages. I think it's an amazing thing for, I see, grown men commenting on my Facebook page like, great work, like you guys can do it. I think also Zambia is really a football crazy nation. So I think just having that endorsement from the national team, like this campaign can really go far and really positively impact a lot of girls and women.
But it's not just a taboo topic in Zambia, right? It is also stigmatized, of course, in the US and other industrialized countries. So where do you see the broader approach, what we all need more when we talk more about a period-friendly world? What is the biggest leverage, so to say?
I think honestly it's just having conversations like this, like just having an audience like this, people willing to start the conversation. That's really how we can make the biggest impact, just not being afraid to hesitate and just dive right in. Yeah.
Well, you are joined by Fatma and Kiki. Fatma is also here with us, joining us from Albania, also a Goodwill Ambassador for Kick the Stigma. So it is really... It is not an Ethiopian taboo, it's not a German taboo, it's not a European taboo, it's not a Zambian taboo, it's a global taboo that we are tackling here. So again, how do we, as, and what's also needed when it comes to the society in general, what do we need to have as a conversation? Do we just have to talk about it, or do we have to actively engage in the conversation? Do we just need to have more reactions when the topic comes up and comes along, or do we also find ways, and how do we find ways to actively encourage these conversations? Where have you seen spaces for that?
I think the biggest action that we can take is just to normalize the conversation, especially amongst audiences that might not talk about these things, right? So obviously it's important for me to talk about menstruation with my teammates who are also women of similar age than I am, but it's also important for me to talk about menstruation maybe with my brothers, or maybe, with younger children in the community who are not menstruating yet or might not ever menstruate, things like that. It's just important to normalize it across all audiences. But
is it a topic in your training when you are on the field? Is it a topic among your teammates? Is it a topic of the training plan, so to say, for as a soccer player, as in the national team?
Well, that's another kind of related topic, is getting into cycle-based training. So obviously your cycle really affects your strength, your energy levels, your mood, and obviously that has an effect on how you perform at work, our work being on the pitch. And so I know that there are conversations that are starting to take place within certain football associations around kind of tailoring a player's training to their cycle. So those conversations are very new. I think there's not, correct me if I'm wrong, but there's not too much research on it just yet, but I think that's definitely an avenue that we can get into next. And it's something that's really exciting to me.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Gerda, how do you see the channels of possibilities when we break the taboos, when we talk more about a period-friendly world? Besides, of course, digital solutions and digital ideas, where do you see the biggest leverage?
That's a big question. I think with colleagues like on this podium, it's, as we said, normalize the conversation, but also support those who still find it very, very hard, right? So providing those languages, providing some prompts or engagement. In Indonesia, the girls and boys just changed the Mensch ärgere dich nicht oder Schlangen und Leitern into a board game to play with their parents, where Oki content was kind of the question answer thing. So it's quite to be creative. I also see really amazing experiences in some countries that are very connected on social media. Influencers at all levels, as soon as they talk about it, and that's also when they can relate to adolescent girls. And when they normalize it, and when it becomes something that is positive and empowering, and this period positivity, and not kind of playing it down and seeing it as something that's bad and needs to be put away or just get through it. It's also learn about your body, on how everyone is different, right? We all have individual bodies, and that's why we just need to learn what is it like. I'm fascinated by what you said, the cycle-based training. We see some governments now taking up action in terms of menstruation leave or making sanitary pads available in schools. So that period poverty is not the reason for girls not to go to school.
But still opening up the discussion. I don't know if you guys know the situation where the skier, the Alpine skier, and I forgot her name, Michaela something. She said, "Oh yeah, I'm on my cycle, and it's a tough time." And then the translator said, "Oh yeah, she was riding on her bicycle," and that was literally the translation, because it is of course the conversation about cycle training and training within your cycle. So how do we? Yeah, I don't know who remembers that situation. Right, and we were all like, dude, what are you translating? We are not on our bikes. We are on our cycle. So opening up that discussion, and maybe he didn't know, but still opening about that and talking about that openly, I mean, that also brings up the conversation, breaking the taboo. Am I right?
Absolutely, and I love this anecdote because it's also interesting. In every language, there are so many different words describing menstruation. Some are not related at all. It's like a code. So what's important for us when we localize Oki to a new country, that it's really done by girls, by experts, that it has the right language, but it also breaks the taboo of that language. And that it needs to be culturally sensitive.
Absolutely. Language, again, language knowledge. Yeah.
And I also think that as you mentioned, to also involve men. It's always the topic about educate women and talk to them, but also to involving the husbands, the fathers, so they can, be open with their children, with their wife as well, and to get an understanding. And everything what they both already mentioned is a step further in this direction to tackle this.
Sarah, you have a broad online community, a broad online audience, and of course, when you talk about topics that are breaking the taboo, how is the reaction? Do you get a lot of understanding words, or do you also get a lot of criticism to stand up for women's rights and to stand up for women's health? How is because it's sometimes so toxic, and we all see digital violence nonstop. How is it on your platform? So how do you deal and cope with that?
Well, I'm actually really glad that my community or the community of women is really interested and also willing to learn. They also follow us because you see it's not just a African or a global South problem. Also the people here in the Western world, they need more access to education about this topic, and in our case they're really willing to learn and to listen and to also get an understanding how it works in Ethiopia in our case, and also to see the similarities that there's more that that combine the problems. It's not so different than we all think, and this is something what the community really appreciates, and thankfully willing to learn more, and that's why also quite kind.
So the curiosity is bigger than the height. Oh, that's a good sign. Thank you. All right, ladies and gentlemen, I open up the floor for you and for your questions. Do we have curious minds here with bold questions or with questions that are close to your heart? The world belongs to the brave, ladies and gentlemen. Here we go. Tell us, do we have a microphone? Oh, it's Steam. Okay. Wonderful. Even more. Tell us who you are and then tell us your question.
Hello, I'm Imke, and I love the panel, by the way. And I first wanted to say that I think it's so crazy that, like, what one of you mentioned, the cycle training, and not just the period part of it, but the other parts of it where the hormones are so fluctuating, and that's also not talked about. So my question is, what do you think we could do to have, like, the period topics and like period health as something in our society, not just the period but all the other phases of that, and to be more accommodating for every woman.
Yeah, and also it brings into the new work debates and how we include that whole cycle into our life, into the work. How can we do that? Who wants to start? Who has an idea of really bringing in not just the period topic, the 5 days among 28 days in average, but really the whole cycle into the full life? It's a very new topic, so maybe you can share with us how you do it in the training plan, or how do you integrate the whole cycle in the training plan?
Well, it's not exactly implemented yet. I think some football associations are just now starting to have these conversations, but that's really the key, right, is that we have to have these conversations. I have to be willing to share, where am I in my cycle, but also these organizations, these clubs, these football associations have to be willing to create an environment where I feel safe to share that information. And I think that once we kind of create that basis and we're all looking to work together and collaborate on this issue, that's when we can kind of move forward. And I've personally already seen a few clubs start to kind of venture into this realm. I know a lot of professional clubs now are sending out questionnaires to their women players. I can't speak for the men, I don't know if they're doing the same. Sending out daily questionnaires to their women players, asking these types of questions. Are you menstruating? What's your mood today? How are you feeling? Things like that. And I think it's just something that, maybe the technical bench is keeping in mind when you're interacting with players, but I think that we can do it in a much more formalized manner. So I think we're all, as a football, I don't want to speak for everybody, but it's something that I'm really looking forward to.
Gerda.
I love this question. Thank you so much. And I think what we heard from the girls, maybe the starting point is learning your own body and your cycle by understanding why at a certain time in my cycle do my breasts hurt, or do I have a headache or pimples, also my mood, but also to say that's not me being moody. There is something natural happening in my body throughout a cycle. And thereby saying, I can get prepared, I can manage it, but also my surroundings can support me, right? And I think as soon as we normalize that and actually understand that this is natural and this is part of being a human being, and that there is nothing that we need to be ashamed of or should be shamed for.
Tara, would you like to add something?
Actually, no, everything is said, but also I think starting by myself, be aware of the symptoms. This is something where we all have to start. It's not just like the cramps, not just the blood. It's also the emotions and everything, and also to talk about it, like with your colleagues, maybe with your boss, with your friends, with your family, and then to not to to be quiet about it. And I think the beginning is also to know the symptoms actually.
Yeah. Thank you. Do I have more questions? I don't see any more hands. Lovely. Thank you so much for joining us today. I know it's a far away from the main area, so we really appreciate that you were coming. Thank you so much. And of course, give and shower the panelists with a round of applause. Thank you so much to Sarah Nuru, Gerda Binder, and Inonge Kalustian. Thank you so much for being strong ambassadors for women's health and a period-friendly and a period-positive world. Thank you for coming. And let's join the conversation. The bracelets here, they are a sign, one of many, and also, of course, the hashtags. Yeah, who has a bracelet already? Do we have more to distribute otherwise? Beautiful. So this part of the room is already well aware. We need more of bracelets here in this room. And you need one as well. Yes. All right. Thank you so much for your attention. Have a beautiful rest of the day here at Republica, and thanks for joining.